This is Nothing Happens for a Reason. Hi, Jeff.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I feel honored to be here.
I feel honored to have you.
We're off to a great start.
We're off to a really, really good start. Well, why don't you tell our listeners who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jeff Loving. I am an author. I've written 2 books, but the more relevant one I actually more recently published called Holding On to the Light. It's available on Amazon. It's basically about a father's journey through loss and healing after losing a child. So to kind of give a little backstory on us, I was born and raised in Iowa. My wife and I met in Nebraska, and we were a COVID wedding. So we got married during 2020, lived out there for about a year, and then we actually, unfortunately, went through our first loss while we were out in Nebraska. And then now we reside in North Carolina. And while we've been out here, we had a second loss. And more recently, we actually had a little girl back in May. And so we're also NICU parents. So we're lost parents times 2, and we're also NICU parents. And so I honestly was the main reason why I wanted to write the most recent book that I did was because when I was going through our journey, I just didn't have any resources for myself as a father of loss. And I really wanted to create a resource for other families of loss, specifically for the dads, that they could look to of saying, that person gets it. That's what I'm going through. It might not be my exact story, but they understand the depth of what I'm feeling as a man, as being a man in this season of loss.
Do you want to share a little bit about the circumstances of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So to kind of give you a focused journey through our story, basically we got from a very young age, like both my wife and I, before we met each other, we were both like, we want to be parents one day. Like that was like always on our heart. That was always our desire. So when we got married, that was one of our first things that we were like, okay, we got married, check. Next thing, have kids. Or actually, next thing, get a dog, check. Next thing, have kids. So that's kind of what we were in the season for. It was like, we're a new couple. And so we're like, let's try for kids. And so after about a year of being married, we got pregnant easily, like very quickly. And everything was going very well. And my wife will be the first person to tell you that I am like the most optimistic, cannot keep a secret to save my life type of person. And so when she told me like we were pregnant, she was like, you cannot under any circumstances tell anybody about this until it's like the proper time. Versus me, I'm just like, I'm ready to tell like the stranger I meet at the coffee shop or something, like walking down the street, I'm like ready. So I made a deal with her that I would wait till 14 weeks, and we made a pregnancy announcement, and I was like overjoyed. That was in October of 2021. And we were moving forward. Everything was going great. About 3 days before Thanksgiving, I believe it was that year, she came to me. She's like, I just feel off. Like today, I just woke up. I just feel off. And she's like, I had some light bleeding. I don't think it's anything serious, but I just wanted you to be aware. So she called out of work that day, called her OBGYN. We were literally the last people to be seen that day just because it was such short notice, which is totally understandable. We go into the appointment, and we were 19 weeks at that point, and she's getting her ultrasound done, and the tech is like, everything looks great, like everything's fine. And I was able to see the monitor, but my wife was not like in the best position to see it. And I just remember seeing that tech go from happy-go-lucky, everything looks great, to her face went like pale as a sheet. And she was like, I will be right back. And so she leaves, comes back with the doctor. The doctor just was very forward. She was just like, you are already dilating. I believe, if I remember correctly, she was like already 7 centimeters dilated. And she's like, this baby's like coming. And it's just a matter of when. It's like, you can't stop it. You can try and delay the pregnancy as much as you can, but you are going to have this baby in the next probably 48 to 72 hours if you don't take any affirmative action right now. So obviously we're like thrown for a loop. We're both like crying like crazy, getting into our
Mhm.
car, driving to the hospital. All this news just like came into existence within like 45 minutes of everything being bliss. And our doctor basically told us we can try to keep the baby in as long as you can, but the likelihood of survival is next to zero. It's like maybe 2% at this point. They were like, we can do an ultrasound right now to see what the gender is, because we didn't know what the gender was at that point. We can do a blood test to see if there's any kind of infection, do antibiotics to keep everything flowing. And so we did everything. We literally did everything we could with the minuscule amount of proactivity that we could at that point. And my wife ended up having to get an amniocentesis. And if somebody's listening doesn't know what that is, it's a very, very long needle that they stick into your stomach and they draw out amniotic fluid to
Mm.
see if there's an infection inside the placenta. And it turns out there was an infection. And it was ruled inconclusive if the infection started while our baby was in the placenta or if it was due to her basically going into labor. So it was like, was the cervix opening the cause of it? Was it already an infection that caused the cervix to open? Like, we weren't 100% sure on that. And it was just never, it was inconclusive because you couldn't, like, which one came first. And so I had that done. And then our doctor basically told us, like, you have a choice. You can try and keep this baby inside of your wife for as long as possible. Since there is an infection, you have the risk of running her getting sepsis, potentially her dying in the process if it goes untreated and then like we don't take affirmative action, and then the baby will for sure die. Or we deliver this baby now and they probably won't last for more than an hour. And we found out that we were having a boy and we already knew his name. We were going to name him Davian Miles. And so his name stands for our beloved soldier. We were like, he's a fighter, he's strong, like we're going to try and keep him in as long as possible. And he ended up being delivered. Actually, November 24th, so 2 days ago, was 4 years already, which is just crazy to think that it was already
Mhm.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So 2 days ago was his 4 year anniversary. But yeah, holding him, he survived for about 43 minutes and he didn't have any lungs, but he was just holding on with whatever he had. And he was only about 8.9 ounces, I believe it was. And so he's just baby tiny, like just so, so tiny. And like he could fit, his whole body could fit in the palm of my hand. And just holding him and just seeing his heart beating through his chest. And it's just, that was my first introduction into being a parent. The emotion that came over us in that moment of like, we are parents, but not in the way that we ever imagined to be parents. And it just broke us. And honestly, it was so excruciatingly hard to walk through that because the very next day happened to be Thanksgiving. And so we got discharged on Thanksgiving Day. We were originally going to go to my family's farm for the holiday and have a great Thanksgiving and everything, but they ended up coming down to us and my parents were there for his birth and everything. And so they and my sister and her family were able to provide us with a meal and everything. And them just saying like, there's no expectations. We can talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. And we're just here for you guys, whatever you need. And that was like so encouraging to have that. That year was actually going to be my 30th birthday. And my wife was like, hey, I'm gonna plan you a party. She didn't tell me this beforehand. It was supposed to be a surprise party because what we were originally going to do was share Davian's gender at my birthday party. So we knew what his gender was, obviously. And she was like, do you want to still have this party? And I was like, well, we're planning the party for that Saturday, which also coincided with like, okay, since everybody's already going to be in town for the party, let's have his funeral in the morning and then we'll do my party in the afternoon. And my gosh, talk about the most emotionally roller coaster of a birthday weekend.
Yeah. Oh my
Like,
gosh.
I'm so thankful that we did that because it was like it made the most sense so that people didn't have to come into town and then leave and then come back into town. But gosh, it was so excruciating to watch that ceremony, be part of that ceremony. Because I've been to so many funerals before, of like loved ones,
Mhm.
of friends, but I've never been like, this was my child. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? You feel something different when it's your your flesh and blood, your child.
Yeah.
I
Wow, death and birth in one day.
exactly, right? You know, with all within like 7 days. We
Yeah.
we we gave birth to our son. He passed away the same within the same hour, and then we were burying him like 7 days later. And it's just
Mhm.
like I that week is just such a blur,
I was
honestly.
gonna say, I can imagine that
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
super clear when you look back
No,
on it
exactly.
just because
Honestly,
of the
like
trauma.
we were just going through the motions. We were just
Mhm.
going through like funeral arrangements, and genuinely speaking, looking back on it, it was like we wouldn't have been able to get anything done had it not been for the community that we had.
Mm.
Honestly, like we still think about how blessed we are with the people that we have in our lives across
Mhm.
the country, across the world, to be honest, just came around us and just like filled our space with love and support when we just were like, we have nothing right now. Like we
Mhm.
are at our end. And after his funeral is really when it started to ramp up in that department of like, it was about a month and a half after was when the holidays had passed. Holidays are really hard still. Holidays had passed. People are going back to their lives. It's after New Year's, and it's funny because it's like I hear the quote of like you go through something so tragic. It could be whatever it is. In our case, it's just a loss of our first child, and you go through this tragedy, and there's a pause where everybody comes around you. But then after that pause is over with, everybody goes back to their normal lives, but you're still stuck with this grief.
Mhm.
And it's nothing against the people. Like
Mm-mm.
I've done the same thing, you know, like
Right.
when you're in that, it feels
Mhm.
like you are literally an island by yourself sitting in that grief. And so that was really hard to wrestle with. And kind of what I told you at the very beginning was I looked for resources for me. I really did. I looked everywhere. And I was gifted one book that was like a bunch of letters that were compiled by this female author who reached out to a bunch of dads of loss, and they all wrote a letter about their
Hmm.
kids. Great book, wonderful resource. I just didn't feel like it was me though. Like
Mm.
it wasn't coming from a place of like a father of loss sat down and wrote out their entire grief story, or like how did they walk through this, like how did they go from losing their child to reconciliation. Like
Mhm.
they were just short letters that some of them were only like 2 paragraphs long, which again, if that was the goal, nailed it. But that's not what I was looking for, and I needed something more, and if that was the only thing I had to go off of, was like my wife had like so many agencies reaching out to her and being like, "Hey, we have like this support groups, or we have like therapy, we have
Mhm.
these women's groups and like infertility clinics and like all this amazing resources."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Please, for my sake, go
Mhm.
utilize all these things." And she did. She really, really needed those things.
Mhm.
And that's something that I've learned and I really emphasize when I talk to people about this is like those support organizations for mothers of loss like are so important. And I
Mhm.
love every single one of their resources. I just wish that there were more for dads.
Yeah. Yeah,
I really
absolutely.
do.
And thinking about that book that you were gifted, the one
Hmm.
book that
Yeah, the one
existed,
book. Yep.
would you feel different about it if it was written by a father? Is that the big thing that was missing? Okay.
I really do. All of the letters inside the book were written by dads, but they were
Mhm.
compiled by a female, which is fine.
Mhm.
I just felt that there was just like that slight disconnect in my own heart of like
Yeah.
the intention is there, but I need it coming directly from another man that took the initiative to do this, not
Mhm.
somebody else that is another parent of loss and compile all these for men, which is great. I just personally needed it to be like another guy that knows exactly what it's like to be a father of loss, to compile those and then write something up and be like, this is why I did this, was because I felt like an island and I'm
Hmm.
doing this for you, another father of loss. Then if that was the case, oh my gosh, it would have been like, this is my one resource book that I'm going to give to everybody. But
Right.
it was helpful for the time, but it wasn't as impactful as I needed it to be, to the point where it was like, we were told very early on from another couple that had gone through a loss like 20 years ago. They were like, you know, this this season and this type of pain that you go through, it really does test your marriage vows. And that's something that I've been really wrestling with even recently, of like, the realization was when you go to a wedding, it's like you hear those vows and everything, and they're great, but like really thinking about it and really thinking back to our specific vows, I was like, wow, we have walked through both sides, like the good and the bad,
Mm-hmm.
through this one loss. And that couple told us, they were like, it's gonna test your marriage vows,
Yeah.
and it's also going to put your marriage on a knife's edge. It's gonna either break you and you're just gonna separate and go your own way, and that's fine. Like, it's, if that is
Hmm.
what is best for your mental health, do that. Or you're going to fall the other way, and it is going to refine and strengthen your marriage, and you will be resilient and you will be able to walk through anything because you walk through this together. When we were going through it, it was like there were some times where I was like, are we going to make it? Like, are
Yeah.
we going to make it as a married couple? Like, we're within our first full year of marriage, and we're already going through this.
Hmm.
It was really hard. I think for me personally, the most difficult part of this during that time of grieving was seeing my wife so broken,
Hmm.
physically having carried our son and now not being pregnant and having to live with that grief, and me having that instilled idea of like, I want to fix things, being so humbled and put into my place of saying, I can't fix this.
Yeah. There's nothing to fix.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
being told by men who haven't gone through this, saying, what are you doing? You don't have time to grieve. You need to go take care of your wife. You need to go take care of your house. You need to be working. You need to be making food. Like, you need to be taking care of her. And it's like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm not shy to show my emotions and or cry. So like, I genuinely felt conflicted. I was like, when do I get to grieve the loss of our son? Like, when is it my turn? And that was a really dark season in my life. We've always been Christian, but that time in our faith, it really, really put our faith to the test
Yeah, of
of
course.
like, I don't want to go to church right now. I don't want to worship. I don't want to read my Bible. I don't want to do that, because how am I supposed to praise a God that I've put all of my trust and my hope into, and I have to walk through that and experience the taking of an innocent child away from us for no
Hmm.
reason? And like, it just happened out of nowhere. And I was just like blindsided. And there's a part in the book, when I was originally writing it, where I didn't have that in there. And my wife was like, you should put that in there. Like, you should put in the character wrestling with his faith,
Yeah.
because
It's
if
huge.
you don't, that's not true to your story.
Yeah.
And
And it's so
so
common too.
it's so common. Oh my gosh. And so I put that in there. I wish I could read you like the first draft of it, because it was like so explicit, and I was like letting the rage flow. It was very therapeutic for me.
Yeah, sure.
But honestly, like, just being able to write out what I was feeling and not feeling guilty for sharing those emotions was very, very freeing for me. And it has changed my relationship in that regard. It has really refined what I believe and how I wrestle these tough questions. And I'm not scared to be willing to bring those questions up and wrestle with them, because it is, for some, it's a delicate topic to talk about. It's like somewhere I can't tread because it's sacrilegious or it goes against my religion. It's like, no, I'm willing to bring that to the table and talk about that because I want to wrestle with it, and
Yeah.
I want to have my feelings heard, you know?
Well, I mean, if we're doing all this work to heal authentically,
Mhm.
it's really important to name all the parts of that, even the really hard, dark parts of it that
Absolutely.
maybe are not as as accepted or, you know, openly discussed. But I mean, if like your wife said, if you're leaving out parts that are really genuine to you, then what are we even doing here?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was gonna say culturally acceptable,
Yeah.
especially in like a Christian space. It's like
Hmm.
that's a no-no, like that's taboo. Don't bring your darkest portions to light. It's like that's how you heal. And
Right.
it's the whole point of the grieving and the healing process, is to dredge up those really dark portions of your process and your grief, and to manifest it to be like, this is what I actually need to deal with and to grow from it.
Right.
So long story short, we both went to therapy. It was great.
Individually or couples or both?
Individually. No, individually. Yeah, we both
Nice.
individually, we decided like we could do couples therapy, but we genuinely were like, we need individual grieving therapy process, because if I don't heal the brokenness in my own heart, I cannot show up and be the best husband for you, and vice versa. And so that was a huge step for us. Obviously, we both had been in therapy prior to that for other things, but like that was so important for us to like
Mm,
make that decision together to do it individually. Yeah, it was very healing. So to continue a little bit into our story, we were like, what if we ever moved to North Carolina? Like what, like in the back of our mind, we went to Asheville and we were like, what if we lived out here? Like imagine living in the mountains, it'd be amazing. And we were like, but we live in Nebraska, we live in the flatlands, like we're never gonna move to North Carolina. That's crazy. We have nobody out here, no family whatsoever. And so when we lost Davian, we genuinely like sat down one day and we're like, what about North Carolina?
yeah. Just change everything.
Exactly. And we're like,
Yeah.
we just need a season of change and we need a season of healing. And the mountains to us are very healing. And we loved North Carolina. We loved our visit out here. And so we came out here in February, did like an exploratory trip, found the city that we live in now, fell in love with it. And about, I don't know, 3, 4 weeks later, we bought a house via FaceTime. And then we moved here that following May. So, and we've been here since May 2022. And it was like, that happened a lot faster than we were expecting it to. But
Right.
um, we just packed up a U-Haul, drove across halfway across the country, and bought a house because why
Wow.
not?
Yeah.
And we lived here, and so we actually got plugged into a church out here, and it was really great. Met some amazing people. Community group. We shared our story, like very first time we ever met with that community group, and we were not expecting to open up so quickly. But we were just like, this is us, like surprise, like you can take us or leave us. We don't really care. This is just our trauma. So trauma
Yeah.
dumping on you guys. But they're very, very accepting. It actually was really beautiful because every single person in that group had gone through some kind of child loss, infertility, adoption. Like
Wow.
every single couple had gone through something.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. Well, I think we found the right group. And so that was really encouraging. And then it took us about another year to really, really come out of our deep grief with Davian. So it took us about 2 years to, or like a year and a half, to fully like start feeling like ourselves again, feeling joy, seeing hope. Like Mother's Day and Father's Day were extremely hard, both the years that we went through it. And in that year from when we moved out here, So like 2022 to summer 2023, we had been going through a stage of infertility. We wanted to try again, but it was, I don't know if it was because of the grief. I don't know if it was because of the mindset that we were in, but we went through a season of infertility, and it was an unexplainable. Like we didn't know what was going on. And during that time, thankfully, we were able to connect with fertility and education birth doula through a mutual friend. And she lives up in Indiana. And when Cassie, my wife, initially was like, "Hey, I want to take this course and learn about fertility stuff and like talk to this doula and stuff," I was like, "What's a doula gonna do? She doesn't know her story. I don't know what they are. Like, I don't know anything about this lady. That's a lot of money." And the doula, our friend Cami, was like, "Just give me one chance. Like, give me 2 weeks of information and see where it goes." So I was like, "Okay." So I trusted her. And to this day, honestly, she was so impactful for our story in such a positive way. And like, words cannot describe how thankful I am for her, for as much healing and encouragement and empowering that she put into my wife during that season of infertility. So, and just like getting to the point where we did end up getting pregnant in August of 2023. And I genuinely say, if it had not been for Cami, we would not have gotten pregnant again. Because we were all out of ideas. We didn't know what was going on. But with her help, with her education, she directed us on what we should do, some helpful things, information, questions to ask doctors, how to be confident when we go into our appointments, ask for specific blood tests to test specific things that aren't usually tested because the doctors are like, "Oh, you don't need that." And she was like, "No, you do. You should really get this done," because it's like empowering to hear from a professional tell my wife, like, "You deserve this medical care, and these are the things that are going to get you to that point." And it's unfortunate that we have to like twist medical professionals' arms to get that information. And so yeah, it was very encouraging that we were able to hear that from her and to have those questions written out or those blood tests written out that we needed to get. So when we did get pregnant, our doctor, after we had delivered Davian, told us his hypothesis was that my wife had an incompetent cervix, basically meaning that she just dilated early. And his recommendation was to get a cerclage done if we got pregnant again. So if somebody doesn't know what a cerclage is, I didn't know what this was either.
I
It's
don't, yeah.
basically, so it's a non-invasive medical procedure where they numb basically from the waist down, and they go in and they like they suture your cervix shut,
Mm.
and so that you can't dilate before you're ready. It has like a 95% success rate.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like really, really non-invasive. It's a very common procedure. It's been studied. It's been practiced for like 30 years. And it's a very highly encouraged procedure to get. And he was like, "You should get that." And we were like, "Sounds great."
Mhm.
So when we were meeting with our doctor, since she's high risk, since she had a loss, we went to the high risk doctor. We said at week 12, "Hey, we'd like to get a cerclage," because that's when you get it, is between 12 and 14 weeks. So at our 8-week appointment, we were like, "Hey, just so you know, this is our medical history. You already can see it. We'd like to get a cerclage done at week 12." And unfortunately, this doctor was not convinced that my wife had an incompetent cervix and was basically told us, "I'm not going to preemptively give you a cerclage because of the infection that was in her amniocentesis test." If I could turn back time, I would politely leave that office and go find another opinion. But
Mm.
at the time, We were brand new to town. We had just gotten pregnant. We didn't know any better. And he said, starting at week 16, we will start to monitor every 2 weeks to see how stuff is going. Going for our first appointment, week 16, her cervix length was at about 4.7 centimeters, which is a very healthy length. And we were like, okay, so what would be concerning? And he said, if it gets below 2.5 centimeters in length, I'll do an emergency cerclage. Not great news, but we were like, okay. Come back 2 weeks later. It had shortened from 4.7 to 2.9 centimeters. And in my mind, red flags are going off. We're like, hey, we'd like to get that now.
Mhm.
That's a pretty big jump. And he's like, no, it's really not. Like, in grand scheme of things, it's really not. And I think that you guys might be blowing this out of proportion. And I feel like you should just really be patient and just like trust the process. I don't think it's going to amount to anything. And we're like, okay, sounds great. Mind you, this is going into Thanksgiving. So that week already
Yeah.
was a lot of emotion, a lot of stress. And I forgot to mention that our second, we found out we were having another boy. So our second son's due date was exactly 8 days after Davian's.
Mm.
So their pregnancies were literally like a week apart. And
Wow.
so obviously already our emotions are high. It's like a mirror of our first pregnancy.
Mhm.
Are we going to live through this again? Are we going to like actually have a son this time? Like, what's going on? So going into Thanksgiving, we were hopeful. We get through Thanksgiving, we come back, and we're going into week 19, and we go in on that Wednesday, and it had shortened from 2.9 to 2.7. And we're like, okay, hear me out. We're point 0.2 away from you having to do an emergency cerclage. Can we just get it done today? And then we don't have to worry about it. And he's like, nah, I'm not convinced. If you would like to get a second opinion, that's fine. But I just don't feel comfortable doing it right now. Now, the caveat with that was he said we could get a second opinion, but he never gave us information on who to go contact for a second opinion.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, well, we just trust you. Like, you've been doing this for 40 something years, and you've been doing cerclages for like 35 of those 40 years, and you're very comfortable doing them. Like, we trust you. You have your best interest in mind. That following Sunday was my birthday. So as you remember, we had our first son's funeral the day after my
Mhm.
birthday, and my wife was like, what do you want to do for your birthday this year? And I was like, I just want to chill at home and
Yeah.
just
Get through.
get through this day, because it will
Yeah.
be great if we do. So we did that. We just chilled at home. That night we were going to bed, and my wife calls me into the bathroom and says, I think I know what is happening, but I need you to confirm it for me. And I looked down there, and sure enough, her amniotic sac was starting to descend. It's like, yeah, I think we need to go to the hospital. I'm I'm like beside myself. I'm like screaming at the wheel. I
Mhm.
specifically I remember that drive. We were both like breaking down while we were driving. Get to the hospital, get checked in. It's like midnight on that Monday. They're doing everything that they can. They've got her head like down and her feet elevated to try and keep gravity, keeping the amniotic sac in and everything. We have a travel nurse, and she was wonderful. And it was about noon on Monday, and I go downstairs because I was just gonna go grab us some food. I was maybe gone 10 minutes, if that. And we asked the nurse, like, "Hey, we would like to have nobody come in this room aside from you being the nurse until I get back." So 10 minutes. In that 10-minute time frame, that doctor that was our specialist shows up, follows the nurse in, even though she said they don't want any visitors until Jeff is back in the room, just disregards that, follows the nurse in, has a whiteboard with him, proceeds to start drawing out a diagram. What is happening? Says, so we missed the cerclage window. So you're basically going to have to deliver this baby. With North Carolina's new laws, I'm not 100% sure on the timing, if it would be considered an abortion if you decide to preemptively deliver this baby, or what. So we just want to cover all of our bases and not get into any legal trouble. In the future, however, I would highly suggest that you do an abdominal stitch, which is, and he started drawing on the whiteboard at this point. And an abdominal stitch is where you open up the woman's stomach and you basically like stitch above their cervix so that it it wouldn't be able to descend into the vagina, and then she would have to get a cesarean birth every single time after that. And he's like, and this has like 100% success rate. Like you can get this. I would highly recommend this next time for your pregnancy. I'm so sorry about the situation that you're currently in, but that's just what I recommend moving forward. And then just leaves.
Oh my god. Blood is, like, boiling
I
right now.
right. And so I'm walking back up to the room at this point, not knowing
So you
any of
missed
this
all of
happened,
that.
missed all of this. I see him in the hallway, and in my mind, I was like, I want to punch you just because of what you've put us through already.
Mhm.
And then again, the room, and my wife is hysterically crying. The nurse is trying to calm her down. I'm like, I have Chick-fil-A in my hand. I'm like, what is happening? Like, and then she told me, I ran out of the room looking for that man because I was like, I'm going to probably end up in jail if I find
Yeah.
this man. Luckily, I didn't. I calmed down, but we asked our doctor, like that was seeing us in the hospital. We were like, we want to transfer to the other hospital immediately, and she was like, I fully agree with that decision. They have a better NICU. It's one of the best NICUs in the state, and if your son is able to survive, he's going to have a way better chance over there than over here. So we did. We transferred immediately. The level of care and intentionality at that other hospital, and nothing against the first hospital we were at. They're wonderful people. They're really good at what they do. Just that
With the
doctor, and
exception of one
with
doctor.
the exception of the one doctor, and he's like especially clinic, so he's not even really at the hospital. But we moved to this other hospital, and the amount of care and just like feeling seen and heard went from 0 to like above 100 within a matter of minutes, because all of those nurses, they all knew our situation. And those nurses were honestly what got us through that time, because of their bedside manner, of their intentionality, of their questions, of their just being there for us. During this whole time, I had called my family, her best friend, and my parents were driving down 18 hours. And they drove overnight. Her parents came down from Maryland, and then her best friend also came down from Ohio. And luckily we were able to hold on, and they all three of those groups were able to get down to us before she delivered him. I kind of alluded to it before, but like our faith was really tested again, because it's like how cruel could it be that we would have to go through this exact same situation a second time in a row? We did everything that we could possibly do to save our son, and we were failed because the medical staff didn't listen to us. And we met with the doctor the next morning, and she was so gentle, and she was so heartbroken for our situation. And she's like, if I could have been your doctor, I would have given you cerclage at week 12, no questions. And we also met a wonderful woman who has grown into a wonderful friend, who is the bereavement coordinator at that hospital. And her name is literally Angel. And she was an actual angel. I genuinely say that.
Mm.
And she was able to just be with us and bring humor, but also allow us to sit with our grief. And we had shared with her his name. So his name is Jaden Noah, which basically means God has heard. One of her coworkers actually was able to record his heartbeat while he was still in utero.
Mm.
And they were able
Wow.
to put it into a little black bear. And so we can like play his heartbeat whenever we want to. So basically he was born later that night, and having to walk through that second loss was more manageable because of the people around us. Unfortunately, we had been there before, so we knew what kind of to expect.
Mhm.
But we also just knew we've been here before and we're not going to walk out on each other. And we both know what we needed to grieve again. And we were very patient with one another. We were very kind towards one another. And we were just like, you just need your time. Go have your time. I need my time. I'm going to take it right now. And just being there for each other, just open communication. And I remember a week after we delivered him, we were back in that doctor's office, the new one, not the specialist. We haven't seen him since.
Yeah.
But with our new doctor, and I specifically remember sitting in her office and she's asking my wife all these questions, like the follow-up questions like mental health. And at the end of her questioning, she turns to me and says, "How are you?
Mm.
And how can I support you in this?" I don't remember what I said. And I can tell you, I remember how I felt. It was the first time in 3.5 years that I had actually been seen, felt
Mm.
seen by a medical professional. Feeling seen as a partner with my wife that I also lost my child.
So what's coming up right now as you're thinking back on that?
Just the importance to remind other dads of loss that even though we never physically carried our child, that we also lost our children.
Mhm.
And that's so important to remember. And that your grief is not comparable to anybody else's. Shortly, about almost a year after we lost our second son, Jaden, where we had some friends come out and visit us, and they had also recently had a loss. They had an 8-week loss. And I remember talking to him, and he's like, "I always think about your guys' story, and I feel guilty for feeling bad about our story because our story isn't as bad as yours. We only had an 8-week loss, and you guys lost 2 kids at 20 weeks in one day and 19 weeks in 4 days." And he's like, "I don't feel like I have the permission to grieve." And I was like, "That is absolutely not true.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what week or how old your child was, like, you still lost that child, and you have every right to grieve that child." And I honestly, I think about that conversation, and he told me later, he's like, "Honestly, that was what I needed to hear in that moment."
Yeah. That your grief is valid.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why I wrote the book. It's because it was like
Yeah.
I wanted to give credence to all of those different stories of all those different types of grief that, like you said, your grief is valid and is so important to be willing to talk about it and to truly heal from it, but never not heal from it in a sense of it will go away, but to live alongside it.
Right. Yeah. Was the book something that you were thinking of before the second loss, or did it really all come about after
That's a
the
great
second
question.
loss?
So after Davian, I knew I wanted to write something, but I didn't know what I was going to write.
Mm.
I sure wrote a poem that I was like, I can make this into a children's book and call it Dino Dave. And because we got like a little weighted dinosaur with like his exact birth weight and stuff. And so I wrote up this thing. It was like the day of his funeral. I woke up at like 3 a.m. because I was like, I can't sleep. I wrote this thing and our friend read it at his funeral. And it was so beautiful, so needed in that time. And maybe I'll go circle back to it and write a children's book. But after Jaden is when I really sat down and I was like, I need to write something. I need to write a book. Like I need to write about our story. But not even that. I need to write with in mind other fathers of loss that I know personally. And so that's where the inspiration from the book came, was writing it for those men that have never gotten to share their stories and putting it into a context of, it is a fictional book only in the sense that the main character is like me personified through my emotion and is just like living in his head. But he's meeting these fathers. He meets three fathers, and all three of them are actual people that we know personally. And it's their stories. And so the first one is unexplained infertility, and they went the adoption route. And it's the loss of never being a biological father. And the second is they had a loss about the same time that we did with Davian, and they went the IVF route. And then the third one was some friends of ours that unfortunately lost their second child to trisomy 18. And I didn't know what that was. A hormonal imbalance in your chromosomes, and they had a living son, and he was 3 at the time, I believe, and they found out that their second child was diagnosed with trisomy 18. The doctor basically told them, like, it's a matter of when you're going to lose this child versus if you're going to lose this child. And to have to carry that child knowing like it could be any moment,
Mhm.
and just, oh my gosh, yeah, all three of them just still, they hit me so hard every time. And I was
Yeah.
very thankful that they were willing to be open and honest with their story. Just knowing that their stories were being able to be told
Hmm.
was so important for them as well.
Yeah. I was curious about you choosing to write it from like a kind of fictional
Mm-hmm.
character, right, versus your own, and that makes sense though that it's this, like you said, your emotions and almost this like bird's eye view, and noting also that it Miles, right, the main character name is
Mm-hmm.
also your first son's middle name,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. Was that a hard decision to name the character? Or did it feel
It just felt right
natural? Yeah.
because he ends up meeting another character named Noah, which is Jaden's middle name. And I'm not
Mm,
going to tell you who Noah is. You have to read the book.
okay. Yep.
um, but it's kind of it was an easy decision, and it was a
Hmm.
way to honor both boys because both those characters play a very pivotal role in that
Mm.
story.
So I know that we're going to end this episode with you reading a passage from your
Yeah.
book. And if you don't mind showing the cover of the book
Oh,
also.
absolutely. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So holding on to the light, and this beautiful, like, it's very simple art design.
Yeah.
But honestly, my friend Megan was out in Nebraska, and I just asked her, I was like, could you just like create something for me? Like, very simple. I don't need anything extravagant. And I told her like the title of the book, and this is what she came up with. And I was like, that
Mm,
is exactly what I was hoping for.
yeah.
Like, it's
Oh, that's
exactly
really
what I,
special.
oh my gosh. When she sent it back to her, I was like, I'm in tears again. I'm crying again. So,
Oh,
but yeah,
wow.
it was
That's
great.
really nice.
So yeah, this is from later in the book. He's meeting with a character, one of our friends actually. His name is actually Light in real life. So this is Light in his conversation, and it says, Light hummed an agreeable tone, and from what you have experienced thus far, how would you describe the feeling of losing a child if someone asked you? What is the rawest explanation you can give? The heaviness of losing a child is, in short, unimaginable. It permeates every aspect of life, down to the core of your being. It's a weight that feels both suffocating and isolating, wrapping around your heart and mind, making it hard to breathe or think clearly when you are in the thick of it. The initial shock can leave you feeling numb, as if you're moving through a fog where everything seems distant, muted, and pointless. As the reality sets in, the heaviness intensifies as well. It's a profound sense of grief that can feel like an endless ache, a gaping hole where hopes and dreams for your future once lived, now stripped away without hesitation. Every moment is a reminder of what was lost, from the smallest memories to the biggest milestones that will never happen. There's a pervasive sense of emptiness, accompanied by deep sorrow and a longing for what might have been. I can speak for myself that I also felt a sense of guilt. Questions replayed in my mind, wondering if I could have done something differently. In addition, the societal and cultural expectations to be strong or to move on can add yet another layer of the already mounting pressure, making it harder for us as men to express our true feelings, thus leading to isolation that can deepen the pain. It is a messy journey where each day brings new challenges and waves of emotion that you are forced to face or be swallowed by. Ultimately, the heaviness of losing a child is not just about the loss itself. It's about the profound and life-changing shift to your reality, your identity, and your overall future. It's a burden that many carry in silence, seeking understanding and connection in a world that often feels indifferent, distant, or unable to comprehend fully the depths of our pain.
Wow. It's beautiful.
I'm crying again. Surprise, surprise, I'm crying again.
It's healthy, right?
Absolutely healthy.
And going back to healing authentically.
Yeah.
And I think that, as you've already touched on, it's also just such an important reminder too of, stereotypical what men are allowed to do within their healing spaces, and you being able to demonstrate like men can cry, men can feel emotion, men can, heal in different ways. And so I
Yeah.
think that's really powerful too, that we
Yeah.
don't still have enough representation of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is, and this is is an encouragement to me, and maybe it's an encouragement to somebody that's listening, but so one of the biggest things that I've been pushing for with this book is for people to leave reviews on Amazon. Like that's the biggest thing that I've like, obviously I want it to be a resource for people, but then like leaving reviews, like that's so important to
Hmm.
get the word out there about the book. But specifically what I wanted to share about that was our best friend, or my wife's best friend, that actually was there for Jaden's birth. She has a pretty big following on Instagram. I do not. She read the book and she did a honest book review. And she's like, I was there. Like I can attest to these events. I know what that room was like. I know what that birth situation was like. And I can tell you, when you read this book, that is what was felt in that room. And she said in that video, if you know anybody that would benefit from this book, buy it for them. If you have the funds to do so, buy it for yourself to understand how to walk alongside that person. Or if you want to gift it anonymously, like do that as well. So that video published about 3 weeks later, a month later, I get this random email or message on Instagram from this gal. I've never met her. I have no idea who she is. And she messages me and she's like, hey, you've never met me. You don't know anything about me, but I know about you and I know about your story because about 3 weeks ago, your book showed up at our doorstep unannounced. And I read your book in one sitting. And my husband read your book. And my husband told me that this was the first book that he's not only read in a decade, but it was also the first time that he actually felt seen in our journey. Because we just lost our son last December. So December 2024 at 19 weeks due to the same exact situation that you guys went through. And I was like, what the heck?
Wow.
Oh my gosh. And I genuinely told my wife, I was like, if I never sell another book, I could care less, because that right there, that's who that book was written for.
Right.
That
Wow.
father. And so that's just like one example that I've had of people like
A powerful
responding
one.
to. Exactly. And yeah, like again, it's not because I was like, oh, I want to be a top 100 bestseller list or whatever, or like Amazon's #1. Like I really go back to the heart behind the book is not for me to make monetary value out of it. It's
Mhm.
to bring a voice to those fathers and those families of loss that don't know how to express their grief, have never been taught, have been
Mhm.
shunned away from a societal standpoint as being a man, and just being invited and given the permission to enter into that grief, because I guarantee if a man enters into that grief and is willing to communicate what they're feeling with their wife, it's going to blossom into something beautiful in that marriage.
Yeah.
Firsthand experience. I can tell
Right.
you, my wife and I joke that we've lived 30 years in 5 years.
Yeah. It's
But
definitely sounds true.
exactly. But honestly, like, couldn't have made it through it without her. And I wouldn't have been able to had I not opened up to her about what I was actually feeling. And so that's my encouragement is read my book, don't read my book. It doesn't matter. Open up about your grief. Talk about your kids. And if you're somebody that knows somebody that has lost a child, ask them about their children. Say their names, because I guarantee that given the right circumstance, if they're in the right headspace, they will gladly talk about their children every single time. Because
Mhm.
I'm always willing to talk about our boys.
Yeah.
And I get the gift of talking about our boys to our daughter eventually. And I know that's not everybody's story, but like, we were blessed with a little girl, and she's a NICU baby and she's thriving now. But seeing her, we put up our tree recently and we have little ornaments with our son's footprints. And so we dedicate, like, up until December 6th is when Jaden's birthday is. So like from basically the 20th of November through December 6th, it's just like the boys' tree and now her tree. But just seeing her interact with those ornaments and like touching them and
Mhm.
just seeing them, and eventually she'll know the story behind them. Like, it's so important, as hard as it is, but I'm just thankful to be able to share it.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And as you've named, it's not just your story, it's your son's story, it's your wife's story, it's your daughter's story. And so there's so much in there. And the last thing that I want to reflect on is I also really appreciate the different ways that you have creatively like honored your grief, because I think people are always looking for different ways to like have something tangible, something to hold. You talked about the weighted Dino Dave, right? You talked about the heartbeat and the other bear. You talked about in your book, you name different characters, the middle name of your sons that you lost. And so I think it's very encouraging too that you have done things like that. And I think that it's really important for people to hear about those different
Mm.
ways that you and your wife have decided to continue to honor your son's memories through, again, very like tangible things you can hold. And so I really appreciate you sharing those parts of this too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, I try to find different ways to honor them.
Hmm.
And a friend of mine actually encouraged me to start a Substack. And so every Monday, I write an article about being a lost parent and writing about grief and life after loss. And so that's just another thing that I do. If anybody is interested in like reading about that, like if they like my book and they're like, I want more, like, you can find me on Instagram, find me on Substack. And so
And I'll put the links to
yeah, for
all of
sure.
that in the show notes also,
Yeah.
so people can easily find it.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, that's what I would just say is like, you're not an island and your grief matters.
Powerful ending messages for sure. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll look forward to reading your book.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. This has been wonderful. Thank you for letting me cry. Thank you.
Always.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, this is a wonderful conversation and I love what you're doing. And I wish you all the best in the future. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeff. You too. So that's all for this episode of Nothing Happens for a Reason. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to subscribe and leave us a review. It truly helps our community grow. You can also follow the official Nothing Happens for a Reason Instagram account and sign up for our newsletter to be the first to hear about new episodes, exciting additions to the podcast, and special giveaways. And finally, if you know someone who might find solace or understanding here, especially as they navigate grief, please share this podcast with them. I deeply appreciate your support. We'll be back with a new episode next Thursday.